We got a couple minutes after 6. Thank you for coming. We'll get started here. My name is Jerry Wallace. I'm the city engineer for the city of West Fargo. We have a couple, Kayla and Emily over here are helping assist with our presentation. My boss, Dan Hansen, is also here. He's the Senior Director of Community and Development Services.
I do it too.
But we're here on behalf of the city, and we have our consultant we've selected with us tonight. More Engineering is going to be overseeing the design and construction of this project for us. We have Matt Brockniak and Dylan Dunn here with us tonight. They're going to go over a brief presentation of essentially, why we got to where we're at here, why we're talking about the reconstruction and utility work that'll be taking place that's proposed on First Avenue here. We'll be talking about, what that's going to look like. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll be talking about what those improvements would look like, what construction could potentially feel like, essentially the funding mechanisms for the project, where that's going to come from and how that's going to look. And then essentially the process for contracting and proceeding with the improvements. And then I would just please request that if there's any questions that might come up during the presentation, if we could please just wait till the end. We'll certainly be available to answer any questions that may come up.
Recording this.
Yeah, yes.
This is being recorded because of the weather, for one thing, just so that people that weren't able to make it can still view it.
Great point, Dan. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks for that intro. So yeah, like Jerry mentioned, we're gonna discuss the District 3009 First Avenue Reconstruct project. Just gonna pass it right to you, Dylan.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to start with the existing facilities and give a little background of the area. Doing a little bit of research on this area, it was originally platted in 1926 through 1931. Part of the original, route of the city of West Fargo. It actually was named the Village of South West Fargo. It was incorporated in February of 37. And the water and sewer mains were installed in the 1940s. It was actually propelled by a polio outbreak. So an interesting little fact. The school that was on First Avenue was built in 1922. It's since been torn down. The Lydell Center is there now. And it's one of the oldest parts of town. And it's included for the CIP in 2026 construction. So that's what we're preparing for. As far as the water distribution, it's asbestos cement pipe ACP, which typically has a life cycle of 50 to 60 years. We're currently like 74-ish on the low side. It's safe while in use, but it's harmful when it's cut. And that typically happens when there's breaks and repairs. So those breaks cause a disruption in the water main service and can impact the structural integrity of the roadway. Water under the road is a bad deal, especially when it's constantly flowing. Fire hydrants, curb stops, and water services and gate valves are all have reached the end of their useful life. They're about 40 to 50 years old and require replacement. Also, during our study, we found that the hydrant coverage, so the area that a fire hydrant can service, had a few gaps in the coverage, so needed improvements as well. Sanitary sewer, there is no sanitary sewer mains under First Avenue. They're all in the alleys to the north and the south. And those alleys are relined in 2024 under project 1348. There is a segment between 4th and 2nd that was not able to be relined. There's constant flow out of a lift station on 4th that couldn't turn that off long enough to be able to reline that. So that's one of the parts of the project we'll look at in a minute. There's a large collector main running north-south on 2nd. That's an 18-inch main that's running north all the way up to the lagoons. And lift station SA47 on the far east side of the project that I mentioned was intended to be temporary, installed in 2018 under 3001. So the intention was for that to be temporary, and this project would continue that gravity line to the collector main. Storm sewer, there's a portion of the storm sewer that mains that are in great condition and would remain in place, and others are undersized. Shown here on the screen is 12-inch, some 8-inch, 10-inch RCP, reinforced concrete pipes and PVC. The minimum size is 15 for flow reasons. Most curb inlets and pipes in those pipes are inefficient and undersized. We would look into upsize those. And the roadway you can see from the images and in any site visit that the road is in some tough shape. The asphalt's deteriorating, it's failing due to age, it's fairly old. And the poor subbase and subgrade and a lack of subsurface drainage. There's alligator cracking, as we can see in the pictures, some potholes with some actually minor curb settlement and or lifting, which is good for leaving that in place. Sidewalks are also an issue. There's some faulting sidewalks, mostly due to tree roots. As you can see, there's pictures on the left, it's a tripping hazard, and then on the right is a fairly significant vault from the adjacent tree, the roots pushing up. And lastly, in the middle is an out of compliance curb ramp. There's 80 compliance. So this is missing a lot of the things that are required to be in compliance for wheelchair accessibility. So this study recommended a few things that are up on the screen here. Replace the water distribution system from right of way to right of way, including the main services, hydrants, upsizing the storm sewer to meet the minimum sizes, as I mentioned, 15-inch. Decommissioning that SA 47 lift station and extending that gravity sanitary sewer to the main collector on second. Replacing any sagging curb and gutter, remove and replace the asphalt in the aggregate base underneath. Add drain tile adjacent to the curb for sub-base drainage that helps preserve the life of the pavement. And lastly, reconstruct all curb ramps, and selected sidewalks for ADA compliance. So this is more of a visual to show the underground improvements, water main throughout, sanitary sewer from 4th to 2nd. And then upsizing most of the storm sewer, mostly at the intersections. Different colors, the green obviously is the sanitary sewer, blue is water main, and the red is the storm sewer. So as far as construction, obviously it's impactful. We're going to try to make it as least impactful, but still get the work completed. So a few of the things that are in the phasing items include temporary construction easements for replacing water service or potentially a sidewalk. And we'll work with those directly affected landowners for that. Temporary water service, so we will set up water before the projects in backfeed homes from like a hydrant, a front spigot in the front of the house. This is a picture of a temporary water service that's laid out in the boulevard and will eventually be connected to homes. Garbage mail and emergency services, we will notify garbage mail and emergency services that this project is happening, what phase is happening, coordinate access, reach out to all those parties, and they're aware of the project, and we'll work through the project as it moves along phase to phase. It's going to be inconvenient for a while when the road is shut down. Fortunately, there's back alleys and garages, so it's not nearly as impactful as if this was your only access to your front yard. There are some situations like that. We'll work through that access, and then we'll handle any resident access questions as they arise. As mentioned, we're replacing the water services that's in front yards. We'll have to dig up that water service location to replace the curb stop. That's the little hexagon shape shown in red at near the sidewalk. We may have to also remove portions of the sidewalk if it's in the sidewalk or adjacent to. Just as I guess an FYI, that's the plan. Shown here is the removal of the water main, the services, and the sidewalk and the asphalt street that's shown in orange. We have a construction preliminary anticipated schedule. We're going to look to start sometime in May once the frost is out of the ground and can start excavation and digging. We're looking to end sometime in September. There is a restriction of the Ladone Community Center that school is out, the window that the school is out, summer school ends end of June, June 22nd, and school is back in session on August 20th. So we're going to be respectful of that window to work in that segment 3 that's in green. This is an example phasing. So segment 1 is from the west to the east at the fire station, splitting that access to let the fire station out 2 doors to the east and then 2 doors to the west, flip-flopping from segment 2. And then segment 3 is anticipated to finish up the high end of the sanitary sewer system. So again, this is an example phasing. We'll work with the contractor to figure out exactly what the plan is to make sure they follow the rules and have access to everyone that's in the corridor. This is a typical street section. As I mentioned, the curb is actually in pretty good shape. We're intending to leave that in place unless there are reasons that it has sags or lifts. So we'll leave those in place, remove the asphalt, install the underground utilities, water, sewer, storm, add drain tile that's shown here right adjacent to the curb to soak in all the water that comes under the pavement and try to preserve that pavement. Water is I guess, the enemy of pavement, so to try to get that away as efficiently as possible is ideal. And lastly, pave that new asphalt within the curb section. With that, I'll pass it over to Matt to fund the project.
Thanks, Dylan. So that was a lot of information. Infrastructure that's old, past its useful life, and kind of what's been studied and identified for replacement. And so with that comes a lot of costs. And the city has many projects that they need to prioritize across many departments. In order to do that, best utilize available funding. They do it through a CIP or a capital improvement plan to maintain all of the city's infrastructure. And this plan is used as a guidance document to plan appropriate projects in a particular year. It identifies particular funding sources, and it also classifies infrastructure based on type. And so if we were to reference the current adopted city CIP that was approved in August of 2024 by the City Commission, you can see that in 2026, First Avenue here was identified as a priority project. And so this project is also identified as a local reconstruct project or a local reconstruction project, excuse me. And so what that means from the funding policy that was outlined in that adopted 2024 CIP is that the city would actually contribute 70% of the total project cost, with the remaining 30% being specially assessed to the benefiting property owners. And when special assessments are identified as a funding source on a particular project, there's a set of North Dakota Century Code rules that need to be followed for a project process. And the first step in that project process is to create an improvement district map. The improvement district for this corridor and project was created back in September. And you can see it kind of outlines directly all the fronting properties of First Avenue that are identified to be associated with the project location. So we've identified this project in the city CIP. It has special assessments as part of the funding mechanism. We create our improvement district. Now we need to take and complete an engineer's report, the next step of the process. This engineer's report is a key step in the project process because it prepares or has a total project cost estimated with it as one of the final deliverables, in addition to all the information that Dylan laid out regarding the infrastructure. So this engineer's report was prepared for First Avenue. It came with a total project estimated cost of $3.86 million. And that estimated cost included multiple different items, including all the construction of the improvements that Dylan laid out in his proposed improvements, any city administrative costs, engineering costs associated with it, other fees. And then it also included a 15% contingency on top of that. That contingency number is to try and account for some of the unknown that may arise during the construction process, design and construction process. One other item to note is there are minor sanitary improvements identified under this project. It was previously directed at the city commission meeting that the city would be funding all of those sanitary improvement costs. That's around the $400,000 mark. So if we kind of dive into those costs a little bit further, means for the anticipated special assessments, and apply that 70-30 split, you have our total estimated cost around 3.86 million. If you split that 70-30, there's about $1 million of assessed total that would be applied or allocated to the benefiting parcels. That's a range. There's quite a range, with the school parcel out here being kind of on the high end, some other parcels on the low end. But that comes out to about an average assessment for all these benefiting parcels around $18,000. If you're kind of to take off these outliers, that'd be about $16,000. So $16,000 to $18,000 on an average assessment. If you want to think about that in a different way, on a assumed interest rate of 5% over a 25-year special assessment period. It's about $1,300 per year for those benefiting parcels. One thing that the city is trying to do to help buy down portions of this total project cost is applying for some grant funding. One identified grant is through the Department of Water Resources, and the city has already been successful in getting cost share approved for the design and kind of study portions of this project. But the city is also applying for a construction portion through the Department of Water Resources. And that could potentially, between the design and then the construction, be potentially $1 million that the city is awarded via grant through the state. That would buy down this project cost significantly. This next slide kind of illustrates how impactful that could be. And so you can see our total project cost used to be 3.86 million. If the city is successful in being awarded that grant opportunity, could, like I said, go down almost $1 million to that 2.8 number. And if you kind of come all the way down to the average assessment, we were between that $16,000 and $18,000 per parcel. That drops about $5,000 per benefiting parcel. That's very impactful for the overall project. So that's kind of where we're at funding wise on the whole. If we kind of step back of how we got to where we are today and talking about where we are in the project process currently, like we said, the project has to be identified through city staff, and studies need to be done. And as soon as the project's identified, it's put on the capital improvement plan, like I mentioned. It can't go on that CIP without a funding source or multiple funding sources. And like I mentioned, if there even 1% or 0.5% is going to be funded via special assessments, it goes down the special assessment route. And so that's what we kind of laid out tonight. We created our improvement, just the city created their improvement district already, prepared an engineer's report with a statement of probable cost. And the next step on this kind of project process path is to complete the plans and specs. And so that's what More Engineering has been hired by the city to do, prepare plans and specifications. We're about 30–40% through that process right now. So by no means completed. After that, we will help the city go out for bid for the entire project, gather those bids from appropriated contractors. We anticipate that to be end of February, beginning of March. We would get under, city would get under contract with that appropriate bidder, qualified bidder, go through the contract process. And that entire process, if we bid, call it the beginning of March, would likely take us through March, April, and part of May. And then like Dylan mentioned a few slides back, we would try and start construction as soon as the snow melts. And so we have that full construction season to try and construct this project. So again, we're at the plans and specifications. We're still designing the project, tweaking things within the project. We will continue to refine costs, go out for bid, identify our contractor, and then construct the project. Prior to the contractor constructing the project or starting in the spring, the intent would be to offer another input meeting, and might be more people in attendance at that one as well, and to discuss specifically those phasing impacts and those construction impacts. And hopefully we can answer all those questions at that time. That's kind of where we're at on a long project process. We're kind of, I'll call it right in the middle right now. It's a lot of information for anybody listening or yourself in attendance here. We kind of talked review of what's out there today, recommendations from our study, and kind of the costs associated with improving this corridor, and then kind of where we're at in the overall project process from a city project perspective. So with that, it's a lot of information. We can go back through any of these slides and answer any and all questions for city staff as well if you guys are wondering anything. But we're happy to kind of pause there. somebody can put us on.
Questions,
I think talking to you, Dylan, you were gonna mention you guys are talking about that today with the access to our doors on the north side of the building.
Yeah,
That's something that's gonna be feasible.
so we think that'll be feasible to split that phase, that segment 1 and segment 2 of the red and the blue, so we have shut down, for example, shut down segment 1 first, construct that, have you go out the 2 doors to the east.
Yeah.
Then flip everything.
Kind of what we did when we replaced the concrete last summer. That was
Like your driveway, yeah.
replaced all that, so.
There may have to be a day where we need to, when we're paving the road, that to do something, we'll sneak you out to the east, maybe over the boulevard and reconstruct that, or work out something for a day or two. So, yeah, absolutely.
I like our neighborhood reconstruct this summer. I mean, we're every week informing you guys, informing PD, you know, this is our access restrictions, these are hydrants that are in service, not in service. That's continual conversation with the contractor.
Sure.
So making sure you guys are crystal clear of what needs to happen for emergency services.
I'm the neighbor to the north of the fire department. And so that access on First Avenue is my only access to my garage. But I think during the half, east versus west, I think my driveway is wide enough where I could make that work.
Sure, sure. And there's, the contractor will be able to temporarily provide you access. For example, this summer, there's, whether it's a little clay access, but there's gonna be some sort of access. There's gonna be portions if affect the driveway or something, where we'll have to, construct your driveway or cure time with concrete. You will be out of access at that point, and so you might need to, you will have to maybe park in the alley or away a little bit to be walk to. Try and make it as least impactful as possible for all these segments. So we can't close down the entire corridor at once. That's just feedback we've gotten from city staff. And, on these reconstructs, we need to keep access for certain segments as we reconstruct.
So then the next topic is assessments. A lot of I'm not thinking about me, but a lot of those people to the east of me, they're, low income families that I doubt can afford almost $1,300 a year for assessments. What would be the solution to that? Because I can think of many of them that's going to really hurt.
Sure. And I don't think that there is like this magic answer for just to lower costs. That, the project is going to cost what it's going to cost. But what I can say is we prepared that engineer's report at that stage to be as realistic yet conservative as possible. And here's what we're outlining right now. We're going through that design process, and ideally you'd have very competitive bids, and that number can go down once you have that contractor bid on that project. There is a potential that increases as well, but with the city CIP, that's where they're trying to be as impactful as possible, fronting 70% of that bill. The other thing too is with the city going out for grant funding, they're very optimistic that they'll be awarding that potentially $1 million. And so that number hopefully does slide down from $1,300 per year to potentially, around $900 per year. I know that's not zero or $500 per year, but it's some things that the city is trying to do to as cost conscientious. They understand that this is a tough corridor. They also understand that if the infrastructure were to fail, an emergency fix is likely more costly.
before the 2024 CIP was adopted by the commission, the amount that would be assessed would have been 60% of the cost of the project.
Yeah.
And the city basically said that we need to be able to get the specials cheaper than that because people just simply can't afford 60% of the cost of the project, because everything he's presenting here would have been doubled if it hadn't been for that decision by the commission. And so The commission moved to fund 70% of the project with city funds and then only assess the 30%. I say only, that's a subjective only, but the 30% is half of what it was 2 years ago. And caveat that with, there's about $500 million worth of work to do in the core area alone by the time that we're through reconstruct everything. But and I'm not even making that number up. It was $543 million worth of work to reconstruct the entire core area when we did core area master planning. And so with the costs of the project and the amount of infrastructure that needs to be replaced, there just isn't funds for the city to be able to pay more towards these projects at the detriment of not being able to do the next neighborhood that is just in desperate need of it, is this neighborhood as well. This was picked, generally speaking, because of the age of the infrastructure, and the roads are just, for the most part, shot in that area.
And I can understand that, and I know how it is when we get a heavy rain over there and it, floods, at least our corner. My concern is for those low income families that, they're gonna have to either sell their house, or move, or whatever. And so, and maybe, that's one thing that has to be considered is, what is the long-term plan for that area? The question or answer to what the plan is.
After this project's been completed, we shouldn't be working on it in the near future.
Downtown, what is
You're
the
talking
master
about
plan?
redevelopment standpoint.
I'm sorry, what?
You're talking about redevelopment standpoint.
Right,
potentially.
yeah.
I guess I can't really speak to that. I don't know the answer to that. One thing that is a tool is that the project would be constructed in 26, paid for in 26, and then by the end of 2026, we'll know what the actual final dollars cost when we constructed the project. Which is, as Matt pointed out, there are contingencies. Our goal is not to spend those. They're there for unforeseen circumstances. So hopefully there's not a lot of surprises and the project ends up being constructed cheaper than planned. But then we would eventually certify the assessments in 2027, which would not show up on people's tax statements until 2028. So there is a couple of years for people to plan ahead for the expense. Whether that's helpful or not, it's not like it's showing up on the taxes next year. It is delayed a couple of years from when the project actually was constructed. So that allows a little bit of planning time for most people.
I'm assuming though that you work alongside of, a master plan for the downtown area, correct? All this has to kind of coincide with the overall plan that you're working towards, not?
I would say that there's more of a plan for the core area than just the downtown area. The downtown area from Main south down to almost 7th has been reconstructed and is developed. And now there might still be some commercial investment in that downtown area. But once you get away from the downtown area into those core neighborhoods, it's more of a triage of what is in the worst condition that needs to be addressed first. And so the core area master plan that was put together does have a list of, here's the first project to do, we've already completed that, here's the second one to do, we've completed that, we've been working through it. And we've hit the point where this project comes up on it, and then when we're done with this, it goes beyond that. And then I'd say there is a means to the methods where you can't really start upstream and work your way downstream, because if you improve the storm sewer, for example, upstream, and you oversize those pipes, they're still connecting into the older, smaller pipes. So that doesn't necessarily work very well. So I would say that there was, when they were looking at the algorithms of how to prioritize projects, there was an emphasis put on the sanitary sewer that is in fair to disrepair in these areas. And then also the water main was a part of that, and the road conditions, and they all factored in a different weight to get an average score for a project, and that's how they were ranked. Now, there were some projects that were scored higher, but can't happen until after the downstream project gets done. So there is a methodology to the way that we're proceeding through these core area projects. But there is some limitations on, we can't just jump to the worst first because you have to take care of what's downstream as well. And so that's, I wouldn't say this isn't part of any redevelopment of the downtown planning. It's more the reconstruction of the core area planning, if I would say that. And there is a report that does lay out a lot of those things that you were mentioning.
Is this presentation gonna be online?
It will be,
Yes.
it's being recorded.
Yep, I wish we would have had better weather outside. Got a few more people, but it was advertised and we're gonna go through it and make sure that we're here for it. And that's why we, even though there's not a lot of attendance tonight, we still went through it as a presentation. Just so that when people are able to watch it online, they can see it as it was intended to be presented to the crowd.
And to, I guess, end that, if there are any questions for anyone viewing online, here's our contact information. Send an email with any questions. We'll be happy to answer them.
So feel free to take a picture of that, or if not, it'll be online. And you can always get a hold of Jerry or I at City Hall as well.
Any other questions or anything?
If you have any other, we're happy to answer questions on project or.
One thing that I'd just like to reiterate is if we do eventually find ourselves moving forward with the project, we're into construction. One thing that worked really successfully on some of our previous reconstruction efforts is we had a weekly update, kind of a media blast that we put out that showed kind of what the work for the week was, what's to be expected, in the coming, next week. And I think we're planning on doing the same thing, this project as well. And we encourage anybody to provide their email address to get programmed into that communication as early as they can. But with that, thank you everybody for coming. And, we appreciate it. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us or the project team and we'll get you some answers.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take your time.